again, one of the biggest issues is childcare, is paid leave for one form or another, and just kind of the overall pathways to allowing the family members who want to work and need to work to be able to work. And to be able to feel as though their kids, their parents, and in some cases even themselves are healthy and well taken care of and progressing when they're gone at work.
I think certainly most families nowadays have two working parents. And if that is the case, it's a real struggle to make sure that they have appropriate childcare, that they have the appropriate paid family leave if that one parent or both parents are going to be out of the workforce for a period of time. And then also just in an ongoing situation, it's very expensive to raise children nowadays. And so that affordability is a real deterrent for some people to expand their families in the way that they would like to. So we're trying to meet all of those needs and address them somewhat through legislation that I've offered. So we certainly want employers to take the lead on this. It's not only the right thing to do, but in a competitive job market like today, I think it's imperative that they have to. And so what we can do as government is, I think we should be incentivizing that and making it easier for employers to actually offer that. And so the legislation that I've put forward is actually to double the tax credit for paid family leave. And so right now, they're eligible for up to a 25% tax credit if they're offering paid family leave. We think that should be up to 50%. And again, this would help incentivize them to actually offer that benefit, but also offset their costs because somebody is out of the workplace. So they may be hiring a temporary replacement or somebody part-time to fill that role. And so again, this would help that business make that decision easier. And so again, we think it's the right choice, but we would like to make it more economical for businesses to make that paid family leave available to everybody.
We have a problem right now in that people are being kept from being able to participate in our economy because they don't have access to quality for affordable childcare. And that's a problem of supply as much as anything. We aren't paying our childcare providers enough to be able to compete with other jobs in our economy. I got a chance to visit a childcare center recently where one of the rooms was completely shuttered. It was closed and dark because they couldn't find a qualified childcare provider to be able to be the teacher in that room. And that's because what we were paying people in that really important job is less than what we're paying people at Target. We need to figure out a way to balance whether the government is helping for lower income people to be able to subsidize, for lack of a better word, childcare, to be able to allow that childcare provider to work in that room. It's a very interesting and important dynamic that should involve the government with supply and should involve with more emphasis on childcare providers, but also should involve the workplace in recognizing that they need to potentially provide childcare access as well. We should first look at things like our federal employee workforce. Hey, our federal employee workforce until quite recently didn't even have paid leave. We finally have paid leave for, 2 and something million people in the federal workforce, as well as now paid leave for all uniformed personnel, which I think is an enormous step in supporting people having families. But let's start, if we're going to start with things like fertility treatments, with federal employees who currently don't have access to that through insurance, where if they had it through insurance, they would still be responsible for paying into that and paying a portion of that. But right now they're not even covered at all. And so I guess I feel like that the government's role in this might start with the government employees rather than all people. It feels like a good first step.
So the access and availability is there. The challenge is affordability. It can be very expensive. And so that's why another piece of legislation that I've introduced is to actually create a tax credit for IVF. And so Right now, there is a tax credit for adoption that's already in our tax code. And I think that's a great way for families to grow their family if that's what they choose to do. But a lot of families want to go the IVF route. And so I want to create a companion component to that tax credit for adoption, expand its IVF, and also raise the rate, because right now it's only in the $16,000 or $18,000 range for adoption, but IVF can be much more than that. And so we think we would like to see it raised up to $25,000. But making sure that it's affordable for families is the real challenge at this point.
In Build Back Better kind of had this concept of trying to make sure that there was, to some degree, a subsidy for making sure that people didn't pay more than 7% of their income for childcare in a certain income range. It also contains some ideas in it that were allowing for childcare workers and providers to have easier access to training and licensing, because we need more childcare providers. Also, it provided for requiring that childcare providers were paid at the same level as others, and that talks to minimum wage issues. So those are, kind of ways that we can be helpful. Also, child tax credits. We saw during COVID that really did help put more money in the pockets of people who were maybe using it to pay for things like childcare. It also reduced child poverty very, very significantly in a very quick period of time.
This is one of the challenges. And so a lot of parents make this rational economic decision for their own personal situation. They look at what the benefits and salary would be if they go back to work. And then they look at the cost of childcare. And in some cases, that childcare is so expensive that it offsets to a great extent the amount of money they would be bringing home. And then they're making a marginal decision saying, well, for working 40 hours a week, is it worth that additional take-home pay that I'm going to be left with at the end of the day? And you see the mechanism that I'm encouraging and using is a tax credit component. I think we should be having a tax credit to offset the cost of childcare. I know some states have done that. We've done that to some extent here in Pennsylvania, and I was supportive of that. We would like to see it at the federal level, though, as well. And this is really going to do two things. It's going to help offset the cost of childcare for that individual family. The second thing is there is a problem in the childcare system right now where the number of students, you need to have so many students to kind of make it realistic to have that additional childcare support staff on board. And so you do have to have these groups and large contingents of children who are in childcare centers.
Not just child care, but just the care economy in general. We are, an aging population. I'm 57. My parents are in their early 80s and late 70s. I'm not alone in the fact that I'm, worried about my children who are having children now, and my parents who are transitioning into a different phase of their life. And so I think that we need to be thinking about the fact that there aren't enough people who are working in that space at all, in the care economy in general. This is a chronic problem, and it's not just about necessarily making sure we have enough people and that we're paying them enough, but that they can get to work as well. One of the bigger issues in my part of Pennsylvania is transportation and infrastructure. We have plenty of places, as an example, hospitals or senior centers or or daycare centers, but people can't get to the jobs because the public transportation or roadways don't get them there. And so this is why things like infrastructure also are important. We need to make sure that we're investing in that as well.
I am a new dad, a father of a 1-year-old, and my wife and I are so fortunate to have our son with us. But she works full time. And so we do see those challenges already starting to emerge as he's growing up and figuring out what we're going to do with childcare, how we're going to make sure that she can stay in the workforce if that's what she ultimately decides to do. Countries all around the world are actually wrestling with this very topic, trying to figure out what they can do if it's offering baby bonuses or incentives upon birth, those plans that I talked about, expanding paid family leave, offering childcare, child tax credits being expanded, and also for adoption and IVF. So I think in all of those areas, if the government was willing to offset some of those costs, I think we would see families in a better situation and ultimately more people able to grow their families like they would like to do.